So today we are going to start with the next topic, which is SICI or simple interest compound interest. This is just for the concepts. I hope you're comfortable with this. First of all, before we start with the topic, where have you heard this word called interest, or what role does it play in the money giving and taking business? What role does this word interest play?
So when we take a loan from a bank or when we are investing in the share market or somewhere, like in case of a loan from the bank, we need to pay the bank an additional amount over the principal money, that is the interest.
Correct.
And in case of investing in the share market, we receive the additional money in like at whatever percentage or returns, the percentage of returns that we are getting, so the rate of return.
But is that interest in case of share market?
Not exactly.
Right. Okay. So yes, for bank example is correct. Or if we lend or borrow money from anybody, generally when we lend money to anybody, we will always want that we get something extra back for the reason that there has been certain time period for which our money has not been in our use. Right. So that extra money that we get on the principal that we are lending is interest. Now that applies to a personal lending case also. That applies to bank lending case also. Now there are two basic ways of calculating interest. One is simple interest, generally not used in particularly any kind of money transactions in today's date, except it's a very friendly transaction. Fine. Otherwise, legally or on papers, generally simple interest is not a concept practically used. Banks and everything, the proper interest giving companies or banks, they always use compound interest as the method to calculate interest to be given. Okay. Now first let's try to understand the difference between two. How are both of them calculated and how are they different from each other? So for that I'm going to take a simple example. So let's say I'm taking a sum of 1,000 rupees. So your principal is 1,000, which is kept at 10% rate of interest. Right. Now I'm going to talk about simple interest and compound interest. Okay. So let's say uh, when I talk about zeroth year, I'm going to invest 1,000 rupees in my zeroth year. Right. So, what is the interest that I will earn in case of simple interest? So, generally, simple interest is calculated by what formula? It is nothing but P into R into N upon 100. This is how simple interest is calculated. Right? This is formula side. Even if I have to talk about concept side, simple interest is nothing but direct percentage application. So what is 10% of 1,000?
100.
100. So 100 is nothing but the interest earned in the first year. Okay. Now, in simple interest, the most important and the most easy thing is that the interest earned remains same with the going time, which means in the second year also I'm going to earn 10% of 1,000. In the third year also I will earn 10% of 1,000. Fourth year also 10% of 1,000. Fifth year also 10% of 1,000, which means that by the end of 5 years, my total amount that I will get back is going to be 1,500. Are we getting this?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
All of us? Okay. So this is how simple interest is calculated, which means if I say that what will be the interest earned in the first 6 months, it will be 50. What will be the interest earned in the first 3 months? It will be 25. So I'm
25.
repeating again, in simple interest, interest does not change with time. It remains same. Are we clear? Okay. Now same thing, let's try to calculate with compound interest. So for compound interest, again, I'm investing 1,000. Okay. So for the first year, how do I earn compound interest? So first year, again, I'm going to earn 10% on 1,000. What is 10% on 1,000?
100.
100. Okay. So I have earned 100 rupees. Now comes the difference. So in compound interest, when I go to the second year, I don't earn 10% on only 1,000, but I will earn 10% on all the amount which is accumulated up till now. How do I go about this? Is 1,000 and 100. So my total amount accumulated is 1,100. Do you understand this? So now
Yes,
in the second year, I will earn 10% on 1,100, not on 1,000. So when I earn 10% on 1,100, it is how much?
110.
110. So after I earn 110, now in my bank, my total amount accumulated is 210. Do we understand this?
Yes, ma'am.
Then I again earn 10% on 1210, which is 121. So now my bank account again reflects my balance as 1331. So in the next year, I will earn 10% on 1331 as 133.1. I hope everybody is understanding what I'm trying to do over here. Right? So now my account shows this. So again, I earn 10% on this, which is 146.41. So this is how compound interest is calculated. Are we getting it? Okay. So simple interest, compound interest. Now, if I have to compare both of them, of course, for the same principal and for the same amount of time, the total amount earned by the method of compound interest will be definitely larger than the amount earned by the method of simple interest. If I have to total this up, what am I getting? Let's try to see this. 41 and 10 gives me 51. 1,010. So yeah, what am I getting over here? 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 and 4, 8, 9, 10, 11, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 1. So clearly 1610 is bigger than 150. Sorry, 1500. Any doubts up till here? Anyone?
No, ma'am, clear.
Okay. So now let us try to see both of these and compare. If I talk about SI and CI, can I say that for the first year, there is no difference between SI and CI? So if you are considering only 1 year of transaction, SI or CI, either of the methods will not matter because the amount accumulated will be same. The difference starts coming from the second year. Okay, right. Of course, we also have a formula for CI. So generally, simple interest is PRN upon 100, where P is principal, R is rate, N is time period upon 100. And be careful, this formula only gives you the interest part. If I want to find the total amount, I will have to add principal to the interest. Are we clear on this? Okay. And in
yes,
terms of compound interest, the formula to find the total amount is nothing but 1 plus R by 100 raised to N, where again P is principal, R is rate, and N is the number of years. And again, always be careful, this formula gives me amount and not only the interest. If I want only interest, I will have to subtract principal from the amount. So this is just on a formula basis. At least you should have these two formulas handy. But I'm going to also teach you one more method of calculating compound interest, which is more logic based. And if you get a hang of that method, a lot of types of questions will be easier for you to solve, because this formula might not be always comfortable to solve. So let's see one more method of calculating compound interest. So let me take again the same this, that my principal is 1000. I'm using this space to do it. That my principal is 1000. Okay. My rate is 10%, and my time period is, let's say, 3 years. Fine. So ideally, if my time period is 3 years, after 1, 2, and 3, my total amount should come to this, because I am still taking my principal 1000 and my rate as 10%. This is one method of doing it, which I already showed you, right? Another method of doing it would be, I can just form a table like this for 3 years. Let's say 0, 1, 2, 3. Okay. On 0th year, I've invested 1000 rupees. Okay. First year, what will be the interest earned? You already know the interest earned will be 10% of 1000, which is 100. Okay. Now, what will happen in the second year? So instead of combining both 1000 and 100, what you can do is, you can also calculate the interest separately on both of them. So 1000, 10% of 1000 is 100, and 10% of 100 is 10. So the total interest earned in the second year is still 110. But I have just segregated my numbers. Okay. For the third year, again, 10% of 1000, then 10% of this 100, 10% of other 100, and 10% of 10. So this is the total amount earned in bits and pieces in these 3 years, and the total will still come down to 1331. We'll see why and where is this method useful. We'll see that. But at least I want you to keep this method in mind. Let's say if your principal is 1000 and your rate is 20%. Okay. For the time period of 3 years, I want you to calculate total amount accumulated in case of SI and CI. What will be the total amount accumulated in case of SI and CI?
$600.
Total amount,
Oh, 1600.
1600. Why? Because if 20% is the rate of interest, I'm going to earn 200 every year for 3 years. So my total interest earned will be 600 plus 1000 will give me the total amount. Okay. What about CI?
Oh,
To go over
1728.
1728 is correct. Very good. Right? I don't know why you got stuck. Let's say if I start with 1000 rupees in the 0th year. Come on now, I want you girls to answer my question. 20%. So what is 20% of 1000?
200.
So I will earn 200 as an interest in the first year. Now I will earn 20% on both these amounts, right? So again, 1000 pay 20% is one more 200, and 20% on 200 is 40. Is everybody with me?
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
ma'am.
So this is for the second year. Now in the third year, I will earn 20% on all these four amounts. So again, 20% of 1000, which comes from this 1000, then 20% of the first 200, right? 20% of the second 200, and 20% of 8. I mean 20% of 40. And if you total this all up, you will get 1728. So I would love to know, where did you get stuck? Where did you get confused? Are we
It's
clear?
clear. Yes, ma'am, it's clear now. I got stuck on, I missed one of the 40s.
Okay, okay, all right. Okay, so we are again still on the basics of how to calculate SI and CI, right? And I'm doing both of them together so we can easily compare both of them also. Fine. So one comparison we did was that in SI and CI up to first year there is no difference. Okay. What else can we see? If I talk about the interests earned in SI, I can see that over the time the interest does not change. It remains same. But in CI, over the time the interest changes. Okay. But can you see any pattern in the interests of CI? I want you to observe. Can you see any pattern in the interest, how the interests are increasing?
Addition between numbers,
How? So 100 to 110 is 10, the addition. 110 to 121 is 11.
11.
Then it is 12.1. Can you see that the interest is always increasing by 10%? So 110 to 100 to 110 is a 10% rise. Do you agree with that?
Yes, ma'am.
110 to 121 is again a 10% rise. 121 to 133.1 is again a 10% rise because it is increasing by 12.1. Are you getting my point?
Yes, ma'am.
So in SI, the interest over the years remain the same, but in CI, the increase in rate of interest remains the same. Every time the interest increases by R percentage, right? The interest increases by R percentage. Can you see the same pattern with the amount accumulated after every year? So 1,000 to 1,100, it's a 10% increase. 1,100 to 1,210 is again a 10% increase. 1,210 to 1,331 is also a 10% increase, and so on. Can you see this?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. So this draws us to a very, very, very important conclusion that in compound interest, whatever the principle is, it keeps on successively increasing by the same percentage every year. So, compound interest formula is nothing but a formula of successive percentage increase. Now, those who have attended the percentage class, when we did successive percentage increase, do you remember we did a multiplier method? So if something increases by 10%, what is the multiplier?
11 by 10.
11 by 10. Now this is happening for 3 years. So how many times this multiplier will come?
3 times.
3 times. So if I put P as 1000 in this formula, I will still get my answer as 1331. Are you getting it?
Yes, ma'am.
And I hope you can relate this to this formula also now. R is nothing but 10. Can you relate it to the
Yes.
formula as well?
Yeah, yeah.
The formula of compound interest is nothing but the formula of successive percentage increase. That is why I never pay attention to this formula a lot, because it is nothing new from what we have learned. And SICI is a good application of percentages. So if you have done percentages well, if you know your ratios well, SICI will be easier. Right?
Yes, ma'am.
Simple interest is pretty simple. Compound interest, it's a successive percentage increase, both in terms of interest also and in total amount accumulated also. We have done two methods of calculating compound interest. One is nothing but the multiplier method. So this was the multiplier method. And second is bifurcation method, where we bifurcated all the amounts that we got. Okay, just a simple revision of what we did up till now. Okay, all right. Then I'm moving ahead. Next, So again, these are just iterating the same point that we discussed. Interest for which year is the same in the case of both SI and CI?
The first year.
The first year, right? Total simple interest accrued after n years is how many times the simple interest accrued in the first year?
N times.
N times. Why? Because simple interest accrued every year is same. So after n years, it has to be n times, right? Okay. In case of CI, the interest accrued at the end of the nth year would be. So this would be, again, there is no specific app. You'll have to use formula only over here. It would be amount minus principal. So after n years, so your amount earned will be 1 plus r by 100 raised to n minus p will give you your interest. Okay. What is the difference between CI and SI after 2 years? Now, this is where I wanted to reiterate on that bifurcation method we did. So, what I'm going to do over here is I'm going to do that again for 2 years. Okay. Let's say this is SI and this is CI. Again, I'm taking the same amounts. Principal is 1000, rate is 10%, and your time period is 2 years. So at 0th year, I'm investing 1000 in SI. So in first year, I will earn 100, and second year also, I will earn 100. Is everybody with me? Okay. Now, what will happen in CI? So I'm investing 1000 in the 0th year. First year, I will earn 10% of 1000. And what will be the two different amounts that I will earn in the second year?
110.
110. Okay. So now they are asking me what is the difference between SI and CI after 2 years. So can you see this is the differentiating part?
Yes, ma'am.
Now where did this come from formula wise? So let's say if I say 1000 is principal, what is 100? 100 is nothing but 10% of principal, right? So it is
Yes.
nothing but R percent of principal. Do you all agree with this?
Yes, ma'am.
And what is 10? 10 is further R percent of 100. So it is R percent of PR by 100. Do you understand this?
Yes, ma'am.
So your difference between SI and CI after 2 years for any principal and any rate would be PR square upon 100 square. Are we clear?
Yes,
Because
ma'am.
10 denotes the difference. So this is the difference between SICI after 2 years. Okay. Same thing can be calculated for 3 years also. If I go further with the third year, I'm going to get these numbers added. So if I compare my 3 years of SI and CI, I can say that this blue box is the differentiating part. So how do I write this blue box as? So in this blue box, if you see, there are this 10. I mean, I'm calculating principal pay rate. This 10 calculation is happening thrice. So it is 3 into PR square by 100 square plus I'm further calculating interest on this also, which is PR cube by 100 cube. Don't worry, you should not be going further to 4 years. It will be too complicated. But at least for the second year and the third year, you should know the formula.
Ma'am, can you explain the formula once again?
So for the second year, are you clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Now for the third year, can you see that this blue box creates the difference?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so let us take each and every element of blue box. This 10 is nothing but PR square by 100 square.
Yes.
First 10. Now the second 10 is again interest on this 100, which
Yes.
is again PR square by 100 square.
Okay.
The third 10 is again interest on this 100.
Yes.
PR square into 100 by 100 square.
Yes.
And the fourth one is an interest on this 10, which is interest on interest. So one more
Okay, so that is R by 100.
multiplied. Correct. So that will
Okay.
give you this term, PR cube by 100 cube.
Okay. Okay. Got it.
And the last thing is, if I have to take the ratio of difference between SICI after 3 years and after 2 years, calculate in your book. If I have to take the ratio of this fifth point and the fourth point, what will be the answer? What you can do over here is you can take PR square by 100 square common. Can you do that? So what you are left with in the bracket? 3 plus R by 100. So if you take this ratio to this ratio, this term to the fourth term, what will be your answer? So again, where is this useful? So in any question, if you're directly given that, the ratio of difference between SICI after 3 years to 2 years is this, find the rate. You can directly use this and find the rate.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So I'm going to do a couple of questions to make you understand how do we apply what we just learned. The difference between SI and CI for the first 2 years is 34, and the total simple interest earned in this period is 1360. Find the rate of interest and the principal. So now tell me how you can go about this. I want to listen from you guys. How can we go ahead for solving this question?
Using the formula CI minus SI.
So what is the formula?
So for 2 years, it's P into R square upon 100 square.
Okay, so what I should do is PR square upon 100 square is equal to what?
34.
34. Okay, fair, fine. So now what ahead? So I am given that total SI earned in this period is 1360. Ab kya karu? What should I do? I'm supposed to find R and P both.
So we can find CI by substituting in the CI minus SI is equal to 34.
That is for 2 years.
So
Okay, got it. Yeah. So CI for 2 years you can find. Okay. So SI for 2 years is 1360, and that is why your CI for 2 years, if I add 34 to it, will be 1394. Okay, fair. This is not wrong. It is correct. Then
for simple interest formula, we can substitute P and time,
we don't have P, no?
but we have the amount. So
So that is the simple interest earned. We don't have the amount also. Where do we have the amount?
oh, it's just the interest. Okay.
So now see, this is one such question where you will always be tempted to use this formula. It is not wrong, but my problem is my principal and my rate both are unknown, right? So the easier way to go about this is now comes the use of that bifurcation method of CI that I taught you to calculate. Okay, so how
Okay.
can we do that? So if I'm talking about 2 years here, right? Um, so we are talking about SI and we are talking about CI. Now let's try to enter all the values that we already have. So see, in SI, I know that I'm going to get three values over here. And in CI, the pattern is going to be something like this. Do you agree with the structure of SICI that I just drew?
Yes, ma'am.
So now let us try to enter whatever values we know. What do we know?
The total interest on
Okay, so if total interest earned in SI is 1360, what will be the interest per year?
divided by 2,
Which would be
680.
perfect. So I hope everybody is clear with this. Okay, now what can you fill on the other side, on the CI side?
680 will be the same for the first year.
Perfect.
And we don't know the rates. Oh.
But where
But
can
the
you
CI,
put 34?
no, yeah.
Where can you put 34? It's easy.
Ma'am,
Second year.
Second block. Why? Because this block indicates the difference part. Do we all understand this?
ma'am, can you just explain once again how we got 680?
So if in simple interest, if interest earned for 2 years is 1360, the interest
Mm-hmm.
earned for each year has to be half.
Yeah,
So half of 1360 is 680.
yeah, okay. Got it, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So now with this 34, now when I talk about the bifurcation method of CI, where does this 34 come from?
From the
The
first.
interest on the previous year.
Correct. So it is an interest of 680. So 34 is what percentage of 680? Can you observe and tell me? What is 10% of 680?
68. So 5%.
Very good. So your rate applicable is 5%. So are we clear with the first question?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, now after this, if you still want to use this formula, putting R as 5 and finding the principal, I'm okay. Or you can still go ahead with this. Where does this 680 come from?
Interest on principal.
Correct. So 680 has to be 5% of the principal, correct? So 680 is basically 5% of the principal. So either you can use this to find. Okay, so if I use this, 5 ones are, 5 threes are 15, 6 are, my answer is going
136.
to be 13600. That gives me my principal. So this is where your bifurcation table is really helpful. Okay, they have given you the second question. I hope it is readable. The difference between SI and CI for the first 2 years at 20%. So यहाँ पे rate is already given to you is 32 rupees. Find the principal, total simple interest and total compound interest. So now I want you to give me the answers to all these three questions right now. Yes, what is the answer to the principal?
800.
Very good. Total SI earned, sorry.
320.
Hmm. And total CI would be, I would not calculate CI.
Plus 32.
Correct. I would just add 32 to it. All right. So now if this is the question, the difference between SI CI for the first 3 years at 10% is 62. Find the principal, SI and CI. Can we try this? How do we go about this?
Ma'am, in the bifurcation method, I'm not understanding after the second year. So,
So in bifurcation method, basically because it is 3 years, your structure will come somewhere like this. So for CI, it will be 4 parts. So these 4 parts will make up 62.
okay.
Which is why in this case, bifurcation method might be a little tricky. Because you don't know how to divide 62 in the 4 parts, right?
Yeah.
You understood the structure?
Yes, ma'am.
So in this case, I might have to use this formula where again R is given to me, only P is unknown. So that is what I can find out. R is 10%. So basically, यहाँ पे R square is going to be 100. So this 100 gets cancelled with the 100 here, and this r cube is going to be 1000, right? So this 1000 gets cancelled with 1000 here. I'll have to cross
Yes.
multiply, find the value of principal. If I take 1000 as my LCM, यहाँ पे I'm going to get 30p plus p is equal to 62,000, right? Which means 31p is 62,000, and that is why p is 2000. So your principal should come down to 2000. Once you get your principal, SICI is just a cakewalk. Are we understanding this?
Is it coming in decimal? 6200 divided by 13.
13, nahi, 30 plus 1, 31. It will not come in decimal. It will be two times. If I take 1000 as the LCM, this becomes 30p, no? 30p plus p will be 31p. All right. Now multiplication of principal by integral number of times. Difference in amount remains same every year. I'm just going to ignore this part. Don't worry. Okay. I'm going to directly come down to question. A sum kept at SI becomes 4 times in 7 years. What is the rate of interest and time taken for the amount to become 28 times? Ignore the first part. You don't need to. You don't need it. Just ignore this. Let's come back to the question directly. A sum kept at SI becomes 4 times in 7 years. So first, let's try to understand this. How do I solve such question? Is when I talk about 7 years, let me try to draw a time frame of 7 years. Let's say 7, 14, 21, 28, and so on. And it goes on. Okay. Now the sum becomes 4 times in 7 years. So let's say I invested X over here and it became 4X over here. Now it is SI. You tell me what is the pattern of interest earned in SI?
It remains the same.
Correct. So what is the interest that I have earned in these 7 years? What is the interest that I have earned in these 7 years?
3x.
Very good. 3x. So again in the next 7 years also, what will be the interest earned?
3x.
Is everybody getting this? So my total amount will become 7x. Then here my total amount will become 10x. Here the total amount will become 13x.
13x.
Then it's going to become 16x. Is everybody understanding this?
Yes, ma'am.
19x. I'm going to go on till I get 28 because that is what I want. Okay. So 22x, 25x, and 28x. Okay. So now let me see what year I came down to. 7 fours are 28, 7 fives are 35, 7 six are 42,
42.
7 sevens are 49, 7 eights are 56, and 7 nines are 63. So how many years will it take?
63.
Years. Is everybody understanding what I just did? It's a simple
Yes, ma'am.
logical thing. I've not used any formula. I've just used the logic that whenever you are calculating SI, calculate the interest accumulated in a particular amount of time and that remains same with time. Okay, but you have to be careful that it's SI that you are dealing with. How do I find the the first part, rate of interest? I can in fact use a simple formula I is equal to PRN upon 100 because that is the formula for simple interest. Now, what do I put in over here? I am told that the sum becomes 4 times in 7 years. So if sum becomes 4 times, which means P becomes 4P in 7 years. What is the interest that I have earned? 3P. Correct? If my sum becomes, my P becomes 4P, the interest I have earned is equal to 3P.
Yes, ma'am.
R I don't know, and the time period is given to me as 7 years upon 100. So my P gets cancelled. So my R is nothing but 300 by 7%. Do you understand this? My R is nothing but 300 by 7%.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now same thing. Let us try to calculate the same thing in CI. Again, ignore the above part. No need. Let us try to calculate the same thing in CI. I need to find the time taken for the amount to become 64 times, and I am given that sum of money kept at CI becomes 4 times in 7 years. Okay, so I'm again going to draw a timeline of 7 years as I did before. So 7, 14, 21, 28. It might just go on. I don't know. I'm going to stop for now. Now my amount becomes 4 times. So this became P to 4P. Okay. Now because it is CI, what is the pattern in the amount or the interest earned in CI?
It increases by the same percentage every year.
Very good. It increases by the same percentage every year. So if you see P to 4P is how much percent? So when I say P to 4P, can I say it is becoming 4 times or it is increasing by 300%?
Yes, ma'am.
Right, it is increasing by 300%. So every time in the gap of 7 years, the increase should be 300%. Do you understand that?
Yes, ma'am.
So 300% of P was 3P. So P plus 3P became 4P. Now what is 300% of 4P? It will be 12P. 300% is nothing but 3 times.
Yes, ma'am.
So now my total will become 16P. Now what is 300% of 16P? 16 threes are 48.
48,
If I add 16 and 48, it will give me.
64.
So how many years will it take to become 64 times? 21 years. Did
Okay.
you understand the calculation? It's a logical thing. The first slide that we did to understand CI, all those things are applied over here. It's a logical difference. If it is SI, you add the same amount, and if it is CI, you add the same percentage. Same question, but SI or CI. Clear?
Clear, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right. Now, what is given over here? If the amount accrued at the end of the first year and the third year of CI is 4900 and 6400, find the amount accrued at the end of the second year. So the same thing, if I talk about CI, the amount at the end of first year is 4900 and at the end of third year is 6400. What is the amount at the end of second year? How can you go about this?
We can equate like plus X percentage and minus X percentage. Like 4900 plus X percent
Hmm.
is equal to 6400 minus X percent.
Okay.
Because if
यहाँ पे
this,
I'll correct you that when I am increasing, so increasing X percent over a number is not equal to decreasing X percent over a number, because for both that X percent, your base has changed. So for example,
okay,
if I increase 10% on 100, it becomes 110. But if I decrease 10% on 110, it does not become 100, it becomes 99. Getting me?
yeah.
So no, that won't work. So you tell me one thing. How would you, how would you reach from first year to third year in CI? So there has to be some percentage increase again. Okay. So which means that 4900 will be increased by some percentage. So we did percentages. When you increase a number by some percentage, what is the multiplier that you multiply? 1 plus r by 100. Do you understand this?
Yes, ma'am.
Again, to the second year amount, you would have multiplied 1 plus r by 100 to reach to 6400. Do you agree with this?
Yes.
So can I say that 6400 is nothing but 4900 into 1 plus r by 100 into 1 plus r by 100, so that is square. Okay, if I cancel my zeros over here and if I take the square root on both the side, can I say 8 upon 7 is equal to 1 plus r by 100? So basically, this amount at the end of second year, X is nothing but 4900 into 1 plus R by 100, whose value we already know is 8 by 7. I'm directly going to put it over here. So my answer is 700 into 8, which is 5600. Again, logical. See, there can be a lot of different types of questions put in front of you. But if you're clear logically, you cannot go wrong. So instead of mugging up the formulas, try to understand them logically. Okay, moving ahead. Different time periods of compounding. So till now, what we saw in compound interest is every time the interest is compounded annually, that is at the end of year. But there can also be cases where the interest is compounded either half annually or half yearly or quarterly. So, in those cases, what is the difference in the calculation? So, for example, if we take this example where your principal is 10,000 and the rate by default will always be per annum rate. The rate given to you by default, if nothing else is mentioned, it will always be per annum rate, right? So if that is the case, for annual compounding, for let's say 1 year, the rate considered will be again 40 only, and you will be compounding only once, right? But if you are doing it half yearly, which means every 6 months, then you will have to compound the entire amount twice, because 6 months hai, so 1 year may the compounding will happen twice, and the rate that you will consider will be half of annual rate, which is 20. The method of compounding remains the same. So now what you will do is, in this case, if you want to calculate with that bifurcation method, the same way, but you will have to calculate it like this, where your principal is 10,000 and the rate that you are applying to calculate further in these spaces would be 20%. And for quarterly, the rate considered will be one fourth of the annual rate, which is 10% in this case. And you will have to compound 4 times in a year, every 3 months. So that is the difference when it comes to different periods of compounding. The difference lies in the number of compounding and the rate of interest considered. The method remains the same. Okay,
So we just reduce it to half and the number of periods increase by 2 times.
correct. So even in the formula of compound interest, if it is semi-annual compounding, it becomes R by 2 and N becomes 2N. If it is quarterly compounding, R becomes R by 4 and N becomes 4N. So that's what they have been, they have asked us to write: annual compounding, half annual compounding. So if I have to calculate the same thing, let's say with annual compounding at the end of 1 year, I'm going to earn 40%. So my total is going to come to 14,000. In half annual compounding, I'll have to make a table where this is 10,000. I'm earning 4,000 at the end of half year, and then I'm earning 4,000 at the end of 1 year on 10,000, and 40% of this is 1,600. So my total amount accumulated would be uh, 19,600. No, 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 I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I made a mistake. I'm sorry. Uh, in semi-annual compounding, the rate to be considered was 20% and not 40%. Sorry. I considered 40% and I did the calculation, which is absolutely incorrect. If I'm considering 20%, it will be 2,000, 2,000, and 20% of 2,000 is 400. Is everybody getting this? So the total amount accumulated is 14,400. In this case, 14,000. So clearly with the same amount, if you are compounding more frequently, you will earn more by the end. So moving ahead. All right. So same thing can happen with quarterly compounding also. If nothing is mentioned about the period of compounding, by default, it is annual. If nothing is mentioned, then you don't have to consider half yearly or quarterly at all. Okay. All right. And last part in concepts that we'll see in SICI is about the installments. So for installments, the basic thing that we need to understand is the present value of money and the past value of money. Let's try to understand this question only directly. A sum of rupees 275 is due to be repaid in equal annual installments at the end of 4 years. So basically, if I draw a timeline of 4 years, what is happening is I have borrowed rupees 275 basically. So my 275 is at the 0th year, and I am supposed to pay back by the end of 4 years, but every year my installment amount has to be equal. So let's say if I pay X over here, this has to be X, this has to be X, this has to be X. Okay. But this is 25% simple interest. So now because it is simple interest, my calculation becomes very simple. So if I say 25% simple interest, if I have to calculate what is 25% of 275,
1/4 of 275.
and that has to be done for 4 times, right? Because I want to calculate, I want to repay back interest of 4 years. So basically, I'll have to repay back 275 as my interest amount. So my total SI that I will have to pay back is 1/4 of 275 into 4. Do you get this?
Yes, ma'am.
Which is 275. So my total amount to be repaid back is 275 plus 275, which is nothing but 550. Is everybody with me here?
Yes, ma'am.
So if I have to repay back 550 every year, I will have to repay back 1/4 of 550. Okay.
Ma'am, can you explain once again from the beginning?
So here 275 was the amount, but it has to be repaid back in equal installments for 4 years. So basically, if 275 is the amount and 25% is the simple interest rate, the total interest that I have to repay back is 275.
Okay,
Which
so it's principal plus interest that we have to
correct.
repay.
Correct. So if I have to repay back in equal installments, I will have to divide 550 by 4. And that will
Yes.
give me the value of each installment
And why are we multiplying 4 in SI
because it
for
is
the
for full.
4 installments?
Yeah,
Okay.
PRN
Earlier.
upon 100, no?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, all right. Okay. Now, what happens if we are doing a similar kind of question in CI? Okay. Now, when it comes to CI, the game completely changes. Why? Because you know that in CI, let's say you have taken some loan from a bank. You might have heard your father also talk about these things maybe sometime. Let's say he has taken some loan from a bank. What will your father always do is he will always try to repay back the loan as fast as possible. Even though he has 10 years to pay back, for example, he might want to repay back in 6 years. You know why? Because whenever you take a loan from bank, let's say I've taken a loan of 10 lakhs, and if I'm paying back the principal of 2 lakhs at the end of first year itself, the interest that I will have to pay for the next year will only be on 8 lakhs and not on the 2 lakh principal which is already paid back. So, how much ever
Yes.
loan I keep on clearing, that much principal keeps on reducing for my interest calculation, which is an advantage to me. So, that concept comes into picture when it is annual compounding. Okay. Now, how do we go about it? John borrowed 2,10,000 from a bank at an interest of 10% per annum, compounded annually. Now, the loan was repaid back in two equal installments. The first one after first year and the second one after another year. What is the value of each installment? Let's try to see this. So, again, I'm going to draw a timeline of 2 years. Okay, so John took 2,10,000 at the 0th year from a bank. He is repaying back X at the end of first year and X at the end of second year. Okay, now let's try to first look at a formula based calculation. Basically, whatever amount I pay over here and I pay over here should fulfill my requirement of 2,10,000. For example, अगर आज मैंने 2,10,000 का लोन लिया है and after 1 year I'm paying X amount, the value of that X amount in today's date will have to be uh, you know uh, brought back by that much rate. What do I mean by this is the interest rate given to me is 10%. Okay, so the value of X when it comes back is going to be X upon 11 by 10. Whenever you do a future value, so what happens is in compound interest is when you have to go from 0 to 1, the amount is P into R by 100, correct? But
Yes,
whenever you
ma'am.
have to go from 1 to 0, the same price will be divided by R by 100. I mean, whatever the value over here is, let's say not P but X, so that X ka value at the point of 0 will be X divided by R by 100 instead of multiplied by R by 100.
Yes, ma'am. Got it.
Okay, so basically 2,10,000 is nothing but the value of this X at 0th year, which is X divided by 11 by 10, plus the value of this X at 0th year, which is nothing but X divided by 11 by 10 two times. You have to go back. That is why you have to divide. If you had to go ahead, you would have to multiply. So the value of today's date, if I come from the future date to today's date, I will have to divide by that much rate. And if I go from today's date to future date, I will have to multiply by that much rate. I'll also show you the practical what happens. Let us first try to find the value of x. What is the value of x we are finding? Let's try to calculate this. So 2,10,000, you can put your 10 up. So 10x by 11, this becomes 10x by 11 plus 100x by 121. I hope everybody is calculating. I'm not the only one. If I take
Yes, ma'am.
121 as the LCM, this becomes 110 multiplies by 11. So 110 plus 100x. So what is 110 plus 100?
210.
210. So basically this becomes 210x upon 121. Agreed? So 210 will be directly cancelled with this, and that is why your x is 121,000.
110.
Did we understand this first? So you have to pay 1,21,000 each year to repay back your loan of 2,10,000. Now let us try to understand practically how is your loan repaid back if I pay this amount. Okay, so let us say you have borrowed 2,10,000. Now you are paying 1,21,000 at the end of first year. So when I repay back 1,21,000, of course I have repaid back some part of my principal and I have repaid back my interest part. Now what is my interest amount? 10%. Okay, now till now my bank, what I have borrowed from bank is total 2,10,000. So I will have to pay 10% on my total 2,10,000 only, no? Till now I have not repaid back any principal as of now. Okay, so what is 10% of 2,10,000?
21,000.
21,000. Which means if you see this equation, what is the principal that I am repaying back? 1 lakh. Do you understand this?
Yes, ma'am.
So for the bank, by the end of 1 year, your principal of 1 lakh is taken care of. So now from the bank, you are said to have borrowed only 1,10,000. Do you understand that?
Yes, ma'am.
So when I'm paying the other 1,21,000 at the end of second year, I am paying some part of principal again, plus I'm paying 10% on only 1,10,000. So what is 10% of 1,10,000?
11,000.
And that is how I repay back my entire loan. Do we understand this?
Yes, ma'am. Got it.
Okay, of course, you don't have to do this, but this is how this method comes into picture.
Yes, ma'am.
So with this, at least we are done with the concepts. We can look at few questions for today, and the rest of the questions we can look at next time. So last time, you all were shared a sheet, no, of questions of percentages. That same sheet had questions of SICI as well. So what we'll do is, last time we solved, I think, 19 questions of percentage, which was the first part. Now we can start solving the questions from 20th, which is SICI questions. Okay, let's read it. Zero invested 10,000 at 5% simple interest, and exactly after 2 years, Joy invested 8,000 at 10% simple interest. How many years after Viru's investment will their balances, yani principal plus the accumulated interest, be equal? So tell me, how can we go about this? Viru invested 10,000 at 5% interest. We don't know how many years. Let's say we're talking about X years. So How do I write an equation for the amount accumulated by Viru at the end of X years?
P plus P into R into T upon 100.
So in terms of numbers, we can directly talk. 10,000 is the principal amount. What will be the interest earned by Viru in each year?
500.
500. And if I'm talking about X years, it is 500X. So do you agree with this amount accumulated by Viru?
Yes.
Similarly, for Joy, he invested 8,000 at 10% interest. So what will be the interest earned in every year? 800.
800.
But Joy is investing after 2 years. So what will be the number of years for Joy?
X minus 2.
Perfect. And what I want with both of them? Equal.
To be
So
equal.
solve this and get me the answer for X.
12.
Yes. Once you solve this, you'll get your answer for X as 12, which is correct. Did we understand this?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, let's go to 21st question. For the same principal amount, the compound interest for 2 years at 5% annum exceeds the simple interest for 3 years at 3% annum by 1125. What is the principal? Now the problem here is difference between compound interest and simple interest is given, but the time period is not same. Compound interest is for 2 years and simple interest is for 3 years. So I can not use my formula of difference directly. Okay. I might have to form an equation. So how will we form an equation for compound interest for 2 years at 5%? What is R over here?
P into 1 plus
5.
5 by 100 to the power 2.
That's it. This is compound interest or this is compound amount.
Amount.
So do not forget to do minus P. Otherwise it would be incorrect, no?
Yes.
So this compound interest, it exceeds the simple interest for 3 years at 3%. So simple interest is nothing but P into R into N upon 100, and this is exceeded by 1125. So of course I have to find P. I clearly have an equation in front of me where P is unknown. So let's try to find P then. Or you find, I'm waiting for your answer. Are we solving?
Yes, ma'am.
I've put down the solution for you on this on the screen as well. But in case you're not able to understand any step, you can ask. I've skipped certain steps, of course, and I expect you also to do that soon.
Yes, ma'am. Got it.
Got it?
Clear, ma'am.
Okay. Okay, great. Let's go with the 22nd question. In a fixed deposit scheme, the rate of interest for the first 2 years is 3%, for the next 3 years is 8%, and for the period beyond 5 years is 10%. If a man gets 1520 as simple interest for 6 years, how much did he deposit? Again, it's very simple. I want you to tell me the equation for this. So he is earning a total of 1520 in three parts. And this 1520 is the simple interest. So what are the three parts that forms 1520?
1000 plus 15 plus t by 100.
How 1000?
Uh, the principal.
Principal is what you're supposed to find, no? So what is given to you for the first part is for 2 years the interest rate is 3%. So I don't know the principal, but I know that R into N, 2 into 3 is 6 upon 100. Then for the second part, the principal will not change because it is simple interest and the interest is 8%. So for 3 years, the interest is 8%. So 3 8s are 24. And for the next 1 year, because we're talking about only 6 years in total, the interest is 10%. Did you get me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so if I take 100 common as my LCM, 24 plus 6 is 30, 30 plus 10 is 40. So you're going to get 40p upon 100 as your RHS. So if you try to cancel down 0, 0 over here and 4 here with 4 threes are 12 and 4 eights are 32, your principal is 3800.
Yes, ma'am. Got it.
Okay. Let's move to next question then. We'll do this one last question for today. And then what you can do is you can try the questions from 24 to 30 before our next class. And next class, wherever you have got stuck or something, we'll discuss the answers and the solutions of the questions that you couldn't do. All right. 23rd. A man invested 1000 rupees at a simple interest of 15% per annum. He withdraws the final amount after T years. Okay. So what happens is he invests 1000 rupees, which is the principal, and the rate is 15%, which means every year the interest that he would be earning would be how much?
1500.
150.
Sorry, 1.
Okay. Now he withdraws the final amount after T years. So basically, if I'm talking about N to be T years, what will be the final amount that he would have earned? It would be 1000 plus 150T. Do you agree with this?
Yes, ma'am.
Principal plus the interest. Now he withdraws this amount. He keeps half of the withdrawn amount with him. What is half of this? 500 plus.
500 plus 75t.
Very good. Okay, he keeps half with him and invests the remaining. So he will invest this, he keeps. Okay. Invest the remaining, and this invested amount kept on reducing at a simple rate of 12.5% per annum for a period of 6 years. So it reduced, which means this half amount that he invested, P, into R, 12.5% into T, this amount kept on reducing, which means is it reduced by a total of this much. Now, what is 12.5% as fraction?
1/8.
Which means 12.5 upon 100 can be written as 1 by 8. Correct? This is the magic of
Yes.
fractions. Right? So if I cancel this further, it becomes 3/4, which means this amount reduced by 3/4. So can I say it ultimately became 1/4? If this amount reduced by 3/4, can I say it what remained with him by the end was 1/4? So this is what they have asked. If the aggregate sum with the man after t plus 6 years is 1000, which means this what is remaining plus the amount that he kept with him before, if all of these is a total of 1000, what is the value of t? Do you understand this equation first?
Ma'am, how did we get 1/4?
So we know that out of this amount that we had invested, 3/4 of it we had lost because it says it keeps on reducing by that much rate for 6 years. So if we lose
Okay.
3/4 of something, we will still retain 1/4 of that.
Okay, okay. All right.
So if I have to solve this equation, what will I do? This remains as it is. If I open up the bracket, what is 1/4 of 500? 125 plus 1/4 of 75, right? So 500 plus 125 is 625. If I subtract 625 from 1000, what will I get?
375.
75. And what is 75 plus 18.75?
93.75.
So now you just need to take this on the other side and find the value of t. What are you getting?
4.
You're getting 4, and that is correct. Did everybody understand the solution? Yes?
Yes, sir. Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
So sometimes you might have to just go by step, form an equation if necessary, and solve it.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All
Thank
right.
you, ma'am.
We'll be ending
Thank
the
you, ma'am.
session here. Bye bye. Thank you.